Good morning, everyone. I'll call the Cook County Board of Commissioners regular meeting to order on this day, Tuesday, March 10th, 2026. We begin our meeting with the pledge. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll have a motion.
Make a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. At this time, we give an opportunity for the public to appear before the county board with their thoughts, and is there anyone in the audience this morning who would like to do that? I don't see anybody in the audience this morning, so we'll move to the board. Has anyone here received any comments? Okay, all right, thank you. We have a consent agenda items, claims, minutes for the regular meeting of February 24th. This is the shortest one I have ever seen in a long time.
Yeah, well, I'll move that short one.
And I'll support that. Good, thank you. So all in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes on that. Because then we can move right into highway, a presentation with an interesting term, a grant application for BioChar.
Yes.
That's a new environmental word nowadays?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Yes. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We have talked about that on and off, I think in maybe Highway Committee, we've touched on it a little. I know we brought it up at a Committee of the Whole a while ago. But yeah, what's super exciting is the LCCMR program. It's an environmentally focused grant program through the legislature, and it allows an opportunity to do projects like this or very environmental focused projects. And so what's neat is there's a really small scale with it, like our grant application, and I've even seen it with larger applications funding projects like a bike trail. And so it can have it's a great funding source to do things like this. And so what's in front of you is a proposal to purchase a BioChar trailer for invasive species management. I'll just read the summary quick and then I'll add a couple of things. BioChar trailer to aid in invasive species management for $69,000. The trailer includes a small kiln, and so that's attached right to the trailer. It creates biochar on site, which is fantastic, from the invasive species that have been treated and dried. That product is then used on site to remediate the area that we just treated. Trailer would fold into the existing capital equipment plan, so we have our equipment replacement schedule. Similar trailers we have on like a 20 or 30 year lifespan. It really depends on use and that type of thing, and so we'll just monitor that. And so, yeah, I think what's neat is the mobility of this program, where we're able to treat it. As we've touched on, I think there's 80 to 100 sites that our environmental division treats every single year, and we'll be able to move this thing around to all of them and kind of remove a terrible thing, make a nice thing, and get that back into the soil, and to help treat those areas. So I guess, does anybody have any questions about this?
Commissioner White?
Tons of them.
Tons.
BioChar, so you're going to take the ashes from burning the invasive species and that will be, it doesn't become dirt, it becomes ashes.
Well, slightly
what do you
before
do?
ashes, so it becomes like, think of charcoal. So we're going to make it that. And so ashes doesn't have any nutritional value to the soil, and so we're gonna slow burn it down to basically make charcoal, and then that's what gets kind of ground back into the soil to help remediate the area.
And are we doing the grinding it back into the soil?
So that would be part of the revegetation effort. And so either a contractor through another grant-funded source potentially, or our staff would be out there spreading it around these sites, depending the size. Yeah.
Okay. I have a number of issues, so people can learn something.
Yeah.
Robbie's going to tell us.
Absolutely.
So we have 80-some sites. Are they all on county land?
Oh, no. Nope, this is all public, private, all over the place.
So we will bear the cost of this as a county, because on page 44 of the packet, it says the program over 3 years is an $800,000 investment, which is about 2.5%
Right.
of the levy for every year will be going towards this.
Right, and so I think what's important to remember is that's an in-kind match, and so that's salary and benefits of staff that are already on staff. So a similar comparison would be, and I wanted Lisa to pull some numbers for me just for a good comparison here, is, if I took, say, our maintenance superintendent's wages and our foreman's wages and benefits, and I spread that over 3 years, I could say it would cost us a similar price to run the shop, for example, would be around $800,000 over 3 years. You could say the same thing with running our SGSD program. You could take our maintenance superintendent and our accountant's wages, and it actually costs us about $900,000 to run an
Which
SGSD
that program reimburses, or is supposedly, we don't know, that's still an ongoing thing.
I just wanted to give some comparisons though on
Yes,
what that
thank you
costs
for,
me.
because I understand that between our assistant, I don't have their titles right, we have the ag specialist and then a technician.
Sure,
It's almost $200,000 in wages annually.
correct.
So after 3 years, and we've done all this treatment, so now is the program done, so we don't need to expend any more money on the invasives? It seems like a futile activity to try to rid our county of invasives.
There's actually an argument to go the other way with it, because we are so far down the curve. We're in a very good prevention stage right now. And so that's where, and I think I've handed out a lot of information in the past where you can see it costs far less money to prevent than it does to actually deal with damage from those invasives. And so when we've talked to the Department of Agriculture in the past, they've referenced our area, our little nook of the world as one of the rare, pristine places. You can still say pristine wilderness here. You go down into the cities, you can't say that. You go down to certain parts of even St. Louis County, and you can't say that anymore. And so the fact that we are still in an area where, yes, there is a cost, we have staff time, we have, so staff time to do this work, it's still an option to keep our area pristine.
Okay, so pristine, so we have that designation. So it goes back to commissioners, when we look at the coming levies into the future and the reduction of federal and state fundings for public health and human services, are we going to continue to fund for food stamps and help? Are we going to reduce our services that we are able to provide to our community? Or will we just continue to increase the levy to support what we're not, to fill in what we're not getting, so.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner White, just to be clear, we don't know what's in the future for SNAP and for Medicaid and Public Health and Human Services, so I don't think that we can make this decision based on an unknown. But one thing I do want to point out, if you recall from our discussion at the Committee of the Whole, is that these invasives cost our taxpayers a lot of money. Not with taxes, but I want to remind you that spotted knapweed, which is spreading rapidly, gets into a septic system. You have to replace your septic. And that is incredibly expensive, and if we look at the spread of spotted knapweed, it's a huge issue we need to deal with. BioChar will give us a chance to jump on top of that, improve the situation with knapweed and other terrestrial invasive species, and amend the soil. And one of the things I keep thinking about, and I was at the Natural Resources and Environment Policy Committee down in St. Paul last week, and we talked about the use of biochar to amend soil and that it can be sold. And so there's potential for us when we look at future composting, maybe at North Shore Waste, that we can be selling a product and making money, and a product that many of us go to Duluth to purchase, dirt. And so I think this is a win-win for us.
Right, well, okay. There's dirt in Cook County too for purchase. That's very good, but that's not the point. So you are, so knowing where we are right now, and we should not assume that, that we are going to be going into the future with a reduction in federal fund or governmental funding for ours. We should just assume it will come back. So,
I'm not making that assumption
But we
personally,
should-
but I'm saying that can't drive all our decisions.
Can I ask a question? So this is a grant, and then we're already spending money on the in-kind. So
Correct.
there is no additional cost to the
No.
county?
No.
Okay.
Nope. None of that's new. It's just, they like to see, a lot of times with these grants, the in-kind piece, it can be my time,
Sure.
it can be staff time, and so that's where that number can give us a really good match component to this. And so that's where, you see a project cost and it's almost $900,000, and you go, whoa, what is that? Staff time, that's it.
well, and you can also put into it your equipment and all
that's what-
sorts of things like that.
And that's what's in there as well, is truck gas, the total effort to administer this type of program.
So essentially, it's the county's responsibility, homeowners, property owners, they have I don't know, do they have an expectation that the county will take care of their property for them?
That is in statute under the egg inspector laws.
That we have a responsibility to the private landowners?
Yep, to administer noxious weed laws on every land, no matter who owns it, in the entire county. That's in statute.
Okay, and there is going to be, I don't think I've missed it, but there's a BioChar demonstration.
Yes.
Coming up that you invited, I think, the public to also?
Absolutely. Yep, it's in, I don't have it in front of me. I
April
wanna
2nd.
Thank you, there we go. It was like early April.
Yeah, well, those are, I still think that our community people, our people that depend on our public health and human services, that I really worry about what the future is going to hold. Maybe we can't assume anything, but I can say oil prices are rising, gas is rising, there's going to be, the farmers are in trouble because of fertilizer, because of supply chain things, and we need to be, I'm more conservative with how we're going to go forward in this county. What I value the services to our people that have basic needs more than I do to the environment, because going to the boundary waters, it's all very nice and it's pristine. Maybe I'm jaded because this is what I've been in for almost 44 years, so that's my level of, everyone should be like this. So I don't have the contrast anymore, like when we first moved up here and, oh, look, isn't this great? My expectation of what things are like is that we don't have litter and we do have healthy forests and everything. So there's that. So thank you for that information. Thanks for sharing with the public. Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan, for that input.
Administrator Trouble?
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Commissioner White. I just wanted to add that this is, because it's a grant application, and because it's an in-kind match, there aren't financial tails to this outside of the cost of the trailer in 20 years. So we have time to assess as we move forward if there are changes that need to be made to the budget as a result of the federal impact. This is a space where taking on this program isn't going to have any additional costs in the near future.
Commissioner Mills?
Can you explain the trailer a little bit more? It sounds like it's small, and is the kiln, it holds a barrel?
No, it's a square barrel. Yeah, so it's, if you think of like, what do I want to compare it to? It's a dual axle trailer, kind of like you see hauling around, slightly smaller than a skid steer, that type of thing. And so you can tow it with a half ton, which is great. That's vehicles we already have. And so then the kiln is just right on the trailer. And so that's what's neat with this, and a big thing with invasive species is not removing them from the site. You want to keep everything there. And so what's happening is as we're treating these different sites, what you're seeing is just a whole bunch of dead biomass all on people's properties or on public property, and no way to get rid of it because we can't remove it. And so this is an opportunity now to, bring this system there. It sounds like the kiln, I think, fits 4 55-gallon drums.
Oh, okay.
And so then you fill those up with the biomass. It sounds like once the kiln's rolling, it takes about a half an hour to make it. And so you can take that batch out. If there's more, you put in another batch and just churn it out that way.
Okay.
And so then all that material goes back then onto the site, which then helps remediate that area.
Do you know, is this purchased from a guy in Maine?
It is.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I know this, yeah. So I've been sitting in the BioChar initiative, Minnesota BioChar initiative last year, so I haven't for maybe 6 months now, but pretty familiar. In Maine, I guess he invented this kind of for invasives, but also one of the issues in Maine was disposal of cannabis byproducts. Like, it's considered hazardous waste, and so they needed a way to, much like noxious weeds. So it was really interesting to hear about that. But what I'm more familiar with is the bigger ones for
Yes.
like Firewise and slash piles and stuff. So.
And that's what we've applied for in the past. If you remember, it's probably a year ago, we applied for one, it's called Char Boss.
Yeah.
And so it was a huge,
Yeah.
massive thing,
Yeah.
$200,000,
Yeah.
and that's for Firewise.
Yeah.
And so what was interesting is before this came on our radar, you could find either the big ones, or there were these really tiny, almost like at-home ones. And there was nothing of this like in between. And so then that's where we came upon this. And it was like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what we're looking for. And so I think starting with treating our sites and then potentially something we're talking about is maybe a public drop-off. So to the point of what Commissioner Sullivan had said, is if you want to bring invasive species to the highway department as an example, let them dry out, and then that product gets made there. You can purchase a bag or whatever. That's very far into the future. First, we want to make sure, see how this goes, assess, and then go on.
Well, and I would just say at this scale, I'm very suspicious of any product to sell.
Right.
It's going to break down to nothing.
Right.
But do we have to dry, though?
It has to dry, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And so on a lot of these sites we've already been treating for the last 2 or 3 years, it's ready. And so that's what's fantastic is we almost inadvertently set ourselves up for this very nicely to be able to show up on site and just start remediating.
Great.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I would say to Commissioner White's comments relative to what do we know, and in the context of the unknown, what decisions are we making relative to expenditure of taxpayer dollars? Now, this is grant money, and any time that the department head comes in and says, we're applying for a grant, which means that we're providing services that bypass the effect on levy. And when that happens, that's a good thing. When we can be resourceful and find money that provides quality services without it being a burden to the taxpayer. The problem that we have incrementally as we go through a season without taking a look at the big picture, which we've talked in the budget process, is that we incrementally end up with at the end of the season with, oh my goodness, these are promises and commitments that we have made. Now, separating out the request for the grant money to purchase something that isn't dependent upon levy dollars is a good thing. I would just say that on page 9 of the document, it says that this is a collaborative effort. And if we look at Superior National Forest, if we look at the Department of Agriculture, if we look at the DNR, I don't know where the collaboration is coming other than the name and the discussion and we're doing your work for you. And part of that burden that exists here, if we're going to collaborate, let's have a discussion. It's similar to the discussion that was had yesterday in a meeting, AMC meeting, about mandated and mandated and funded and mandated and not funded. And if this is a collaboration with entities that want to see invasives addressed in an area that has benefit, there's a lot of things that enter into that discussion. The one being on page 9, a collaborative effort. And collaborative usually means that we pool together resources, which is just not knowledge and discussion, but it's also dollars to say, let's make this happen because it's a shared value.
Can I touch on that quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the collaboration comes from the Cook County Invasives team. And so I think, I apologize, I don't remember who sits, there we go, on that. But so that's Superior National Forest, the DNR, MnDOT, name any other entity related to the environment up here or along the North Shore, they sit on that. And so while there might not be a dollar and cents specifically as, hey, we'll provide $10,000 or whatever, they do provide a lot of staff time. And so when we do go out and treat sites, this grant application doesn't show that because the guarantee we had is our own staff time. But more often than not, when we do go treat sites, either with CCIT partners, they're there as well. And so whether it's members of the Forest Service, members of the DNR, members of MnDOT, whatever it might be, that component is a part of that. So the collaboration component you mentioned, I agree, is we don't just say that because we all sit in a committee together. No, it's you want those members to be there. We all got to get a little dirt under our fingernails if we really want to have this collaborative effort. And so that's where I think the CCIT really shines in that regard is, yes, we are leading it, but I think having those members being a part of that and being willing to go out to do these types of projects is super helpful. And it lends us to a very strong application, not just in this regard, but in other, infrastructure projects or, whatever.
Yeah. So I appreciate that response. I mean, not that it's required in the application, but it is to inform both the public and commissioners who are making a decision on this, where we see the substance of that collaboration. The other thing to be mindful of, and we've got this across the county, is that this position, which through the state is funded based upon the 87 counties and their position, between $8,000 to $10,000. So I think our funding here is, we get from the state for the agricultural position, we get about $8,500. Usually with the county, that's about 20%. That money is about 20% of their total budget in that particular area, agriculture. For us, it's 2.34%. That means that the amount of money that we're spending in there because of our wages and costs of things is that we're spending a significant portion of money in the last few years in this department that did not exist before. This is where in the budget process, you're kicking in an additional significant amount of money. If we look at the money that comes back to us, payment in lieu of taxes, which is the state of Minnesota, DNR saying, okay, we realize there's work that is done on this land. It can be work that is done both in emergency, in your department, in the highway department, and in invasives and other things. And the amount of money in that department, when we look at what we get in the funding in PILT, which runs between $380,000 and $390,000 annually, we're using over a third of that money. So how this applies practically and generically is that as a board, when we're fiscally responsible for taxpayer dollars, we have to look at what do we get for what do we pay as a percentage of where the funding mechanisms are in this. And we've got some departments where there is very, very little money. You use comparisons to say here and there. Those comparisons can be true and they're informative, but in the context of the whole picture and the unknowns, we have to know where we're at. My sense of things on this, I guess the simple way to say it, Jack and Jill went up the hill, is that we're spending this money in this department now, which at some point in time, this body of decision makers made a decision to do, which is a significant portion of money. And where we're at right now, you've already made that decision. It shows up in dollars in the application. Well, we're saying, let's equip that department, that expense that you've already committed to, by taking grant dollars to buy something to tool that department. I would say that, have you had conversation with Carlton County or Ramsey County?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in what you just said, too. A lot of figures, a lot of percentages that I don't have and the numbers
Yeah.
to confirm in front of me. But what I have had an opportunity to do is go on the Department of Agriculture website, and I showed this with Commissioner Sullivan and Commissioner White a while ago, of all 87 counties. And so I think comparisons have been made in the past about maybe our neighbors up here, which is one tiny comparison. I know articles have been written in the past as well about this very department, and admittedly gets a skosh under my skin when the whole picture, as we like to talk about a lot, isn't shown. And so I think what's really important to remember is there's a lot of counties that have multiple full-time ag inspectors. Some have 2, some have 4. We have 1. There's, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I want to say 18 counties that have multiple county ag inspectors. There's 3 in the entire state that have full-time ones. We are one of them. Stearns is the other, and Becker is another one. When you start to actually list all the counties next to each other and have a good list of comparables, not just the size of the county, but also the population of the county, right? Tax base that funds it, but the agricultural inspector, as I've mentioned in the past, is responsible for all of the land in the county, not just public, not just private, all of it. And when you have that list in front of you of all the counties with the number of ag inspectors that they have, and you see where we land on that, we actually fit in pretty darn nice. To what everybody else is doing. You can see Otter Tail County has 4 county ag inspectors, and they are not that much bigger than we are, as far as the land is concerned. And so I think, and I'm happy to share that list too with other commissioners if you guys are interested in seeing that. But to the point of, bang for your buck, I guess. This board did unanimously create this division. I believe it was 3 years ago, and we've subsequently unanimously, been able to fund it and make it a levy-dependent thing because of the value that I believe this board and this community has shown to this division. You hear it whether you're in CCIT meetings or you hear it when we go to conferences where we are in a rare place where we can still prevent. We can still eat fish out of our lakes, and I know that seems really silly to say, but you can go to places, even in Brainerd, would you eat a fish out of Gull Lake? I have uncles down there, and they wouldn't. Are you going to pull a northern out of, Bidet-Makaska down in Minneapolis and fry that up? Probably not. And so, so we're in a rare opportunity to prevent. Which is great, which is, the information you and I had talked about before, Commissioner Gamble, and I had given you that stack of research showing the importance of prevention, of protecting the environment from invasive species and the causes of them. We're on the very bottom end of that curve. And so I think that's where, something I'm not just passionate about, but also, it makes sense. We're still in a prevention stage. Which is
Yeah, and Madam Chair, if I can follow up, that list, before, when we were in the budget process, I looked at the list to see how many ag, individuals were in counties, and some counties that have considerable farming are different than in our situation. And the point is that as decision makers, that when it comes to budget, we have to go through the discipline of prioritizing based upon assessment of value, based upon a comparative study, based upon a look at dollars, based upon looking at the revenues that we receive from other sources. I can look at the Veterans Administration Department. That in over, I'd say probably going, ever since it changed, and the state required that we had to go to 2 veteran service officers back in the early 20s, 2012, 2013, something like that. The state, from that time to this time, we continue to get $7,500 from the state for the VA position. And it seems to me there's a lot of discussion about the value of treating our veterans with respect and services, and we have not seen that dollar change. In that period of over a dozen years, you think that if value translates from words to dollars, we would have seen an increase in that money. So we have $7,500 the state gives us for that department, and we're spending over $100 and some thousand in that department. So what does that mean? That means that we as a body of decision makers relative to budget have to learn to prioritize and then put our dollars there. And hopefully it's reflective of the values that are in this community. So that's the problem I have is it's not that we've got the grant money and we can buy something. If you've talked to Carlton and you've talked to Ramsey where they've used this, and we've seen that, and there are other organizations, not-for-profit as well, that are piloting this system and saying what's working, what's not working. We learn from other people's experience so that we can refine our decision based upon that lived experience. So there are counties that are piloting this to see how it works. We could pilot it, but we could also learn from others. And if we've done that, we don't have to do an additional step if we're assured through our decision-making process that we're confident in the approach we're taking. And I will say that in my experience in working with you, that you are thorough and detailed in that regard. So I have confidence in the integrity of process. I just look at the budget issue.
Totally. Nope, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Administrator Trevor?
Thank you, and thank you for raising your concerns, Commissioner. The only thing I wanted to add is that it seems like some of the concerns raised are much broader, like you just mentioned. It's about the budget, and we'll have an opportunity to work on that during our next work session, where we're going to dig into the budget. In regard to the position, this particular position, one of my questions when I started was to ask Robbie, can you share that analysis regarding what do other counties in the state do, where are we at? And in looking at that, I really do think that this position is the right match for our county, having one FTE, or two FTEs, the ag inspector as well as the technician working in that space. And so we did that analysis. That doesn't mean that we can't continue to have discussions about how we move forward and how the budget is impacted by certain positions, but I just wanted to make sure that I shared that we had done that analysis. I fully support this purchase. I think it's the right move for us as a county for the reasons that Robbie has mentioned, and I look forward to continued discussions around the budget.
One of the words that I like is collaboration. How confident are you that we can collaborate with MnDOT? Because the ditches are full
Right.
of stuff.
I think it's something for us to bring up at the next CCIT meeting is, okay, we're going to have this trailer now. How do we want to, kind of getting back to the point of prioritizing where we're going, how are we doing it, how can we get the biggest bang for our buck? How can we help not just our public lands, but our private folks too? So the example Commissioner Sullivan had given, kind of with the septic, something like that. And so I think pretty confident this would be the only disposal site, I think, within 80 or 100 miles of here. And so that was another big reason is if there was somewhere we could do this, we'd already be doing it. And so the fact that that is already so far away and basically not an option, now we're going to be the only one. And so it'll be really interesting to see how that transforms how people do work up here, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I had one experience with them at Cascade where they did some revamping of the brickwork there, and there's a little center.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, but they planted it with invasives. It's like, wait a minute. So I asked them to remove it. They did, and they planted a kind of a reed type of stock, no flowers, just. So I know that it can be workable, and I am working on Highway 61 committee.
Yes.
So it may be something, that I'll bring up there too, because we need to collaborate, especially with the lupin, because they're so showy and so beautiful,
Mhm.
and everybody either likes them or hates them.
You can lead that discussion.
Well, and when I go to garden centers, I do see lupin, and I say, please don't sell these again, because they are invasive. There's a smaller lupin that's a state lupin, and it's smaller and just as beautiful. So I'm trying to spread the word. Okay, any other comments? Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would say that, in doing the research and looking at it, this isn't something new. This has been around for 2,000 years, this practice of doing this. In many cases, when you look at the biochar, you see that it's farms that are trying to treat the weeds and the woody substances that impede their ability to get, good return on their fields. And so the type of soil is important. There are more risks involved in the farming end of things, growing vegetation, than there are in our situation trying to eliminate invasives. And having highly acidic soil is one of the components, which is pretty much we're the poster child of that in the dictionary.
Yep.
So these are things that are, I would say, rightly aligned, saying this seems to be a response. My concern is the overall budget. That's my hesitation. As I said, we've committed to that 3 years ago, and this is just asking to tool that department. My initial was, I'm not comfortable that we've had a lot of discussion on this, but this discussion that we've had right now says that there is a lot that's foundational to this coming before the board today. And so I support it in the fact that it's not new money. It's just creating new opportunity with the money we already committed to 3 years ago. But I do believe that the scrutiny and the integrity of process needs to be evident when it comes to decisions like this. So I appreciate the discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Commissioner White?
You said that people could bring their invasives to a site, like maybe,
No.
Not yet.
okay, but that's something, the
Maybe.
whole idea of taking out invasives and then transporting them.
Right. Is
The-
not good, right.
No,
And
not
so,
good
well,
at
and-
all.
Right, and so that was right now, the point is, and I like that idea, we're giving people tools, and this is what that is. Now we are gonna travel around and do it. We have kicked around the idea of a centralized disposal site that then we could make biochar, but that is something that is way far. I don't even know if it would happen. We got to see how this goes first. Because, to be honest, I think to the point Administrator Treble brought up, maybe this is a bust, and we're not going to do it anymore. And so that's where I think having the grant funding is nice. We're not on the hook for anything. We can try this, we can assess, and it's either going to be great and it's going to work and we're going to have a fully functioning program, or it won't. And we got grant money, and then we'll try and sell the trailer or use it to its life, and that'll be that.
And just one last question. I attended that with Commissioner Sullivan, the collaboration of the entities that are working on invasives. And the DNR's report was alarming because they spray Roundup on the invasives in the ditch sitting right above Lake Superior. And they also have, which the presenter was very excited about, a piece of equipment that allows him, I don't think he has one of his own, but he gets to use it, to spray the Roundup about 30 feet.
Right.
So what happens when there's burning Roundup, burning, I don't know I don't know if there's anything, or when I originally read down in Wisconsin about Roundup in a farm magazine about this new exciting herbicide, that it had absolutely no negative repercussions anywhere, and it was just the basic little, I forget the name of it, but it was newspaper print, and it was like, this is the coming. But what happens, can you burn Roundup and all those chemicals
I think,
without other side effects?
I think
And
that's-
what does that happen? If it's still in the biochar, does it break down? Is it gone, or is it still there?
that's a great question, and I have no idea. But I think what we would do is, before we would make anything, we would know how that site was treated, more importantly. We know exactly how our sites are treated, and so that 80 to 100 is the sites that we specifically treat. Anything beyond that would be a consult with either the DNR or I think it was MnDOT maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that had
MnDOT
mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that conversation. And I think what's nice too with those groups like that is, while we can't say, please stop using Roundup, what it is at least an opportunity for everybody to come together and then hopefully try and, assert a little pressure government to government and say, well, can we try something a little different up here? Because we do want to make biochar, or we do want to do something different. And so I think there'll be more conversations around that. That'll have to happen. But no, that's a really good question. I'm not sure if that would go away or not. But I wouldn't want to use it then if it was going to be there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But and I think even more alarming is it's being sprayed in the ditches and at the river, mouths of the river, right there next to Lake Superior. That's alarming.
Commissioner Mills?
Just wanted to put a plug, North Shore Waste, as far as a centralized location is concerned, North Shore Waste is very interested in biochar, but more at that Firewise level, the bigger stuff. And so there could be an opportunity to partner with them if we wanted a more centralized
That'd be fantastic.
thing. But I think this priority comes after the transfer station, after recycling, and maybe after composting. But their interest has recently been piqued because of the wastewater treatment plant and how those biosolids are disposed of, and they can be put into biochar. So there's an
Yeah.
opportunity there. But-
Maybe I'll reach out to Dustin and
Yeah.
see what type of, because I know we've applied for a couple different grants in the past when I've talked those bigger systems, and I don't know if those bigger ones handle, like waste at North Shore Waste versus, like Firewise. Two different, so I'm not sure yet, but I'll reach out to him and see what he's seen. That's a good,
And
thank you.
it's, again, down the.
Good. That comes real quick, though.
Touche.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we have mentioned many times, that the area that we live in is considered pristine compared to many places around the country, and we want to be good stewards of that, protect that, and so efforts that we make, to Commissioner White's point, relative to what's the composite nature of what we're burning and what's in it, in the research, it says that in large-scale, use, it's crucial to test the final biochar product for contaminants to ensure it meets safety standards, such as those recommended by the International Biochar Initiative. And so in reading different articles, it talks about some of the things that you might come up with metals that are contained in or other chemical components. And the reason it's important to bring it up and connect the two is if we say that this is a pristine area that we're trying to protect against any contaminants compromising the pristine nature, that this is something that we don't want to make an assumption and find out, oh my goodness, this is what we've done. We found that with Roundup that we thought was going to be a problem solver that ends up creating significant problems that translate on multiple levels. So it's another component that when it comes to the decision-making, we're saying, are we looking at this as not something that's a new thing that's going to solve a problem that we end up bringing Martins in and having, problems. So it's not to overlay or to confuse the issue or to obfuscate. It is just a matter of being good stewards and recognizing we need to be consistent when it says we're protecting our pristine area. And when it comes to looking at things that have been defined here, to make sure that we are testing and finding out, is it doing what we want? And that there's no residual effect that's going to come back and bite us. So.
Right. And we can look at, too, I think what's neat, if you looked at the application, how funding generally works with this type of stuff. And that's why I said, it's good to start collaborating now, because the future comes very quick, as this wouldn't be until a summer of 27 purchase. So that's a lot of time between now and then to, potentially even find a place that does test. And so that could be a thing. I don't know if it would be per site, if it would be maybe every so often, but, I would think the composition of the material at each site, even if it's the same plant, could be different given what that site is. We're not going to be treating Superfund sites, but it's people's property. But who knows, right? What people have done in the past. So I think, to your point, Commissioner Gamble, it would be interesting to find somewhere that we could send some samples into once we make it, to say, is this good before we stick it in the ground.
And I would say in that regard, that in a conversation with Carlton that's using it in their soil water, using it in a similar application, asking them question, did you? And the other thing, the University of Minnesota, because they're doing this in several St. Paul parks and places where they're using it for invasives. And just especially with the University of Minnesota saying, so are you finding out what the composite nature of this is after you've basically turned it to ash, so, anyway.
No, it's a good point.
Appreciate the discussion.
Absolutely.
Madam Chair? Well, I think we've had a really excellent discussion, and I think that my mobile biochar gives us a lot of opportunity here in Cook County. And the fact that this can be pulled on a relatively small truck gets us into all kinds of areas that otherwise we might not be able to treat. And given that, I'd like to make a motion to approve by resolution to support and submit the proposal for the biochar trailer purchase with LCCMR funds.
Support.
Any further questions or comments? Yes.
Just want to say on the LCCMR members, we have Seth Moore, we have Roger Scraba, and I thought there was someone else I recognized too, but it's nice to see that we have some people in our court there.
So I will call a vote unless there's any other questions or comments. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes with one objection. Thank you for enlightening us, and we'll wait for the future biochar to develop in the county.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And to Mr. Hass, you do a fine, very fine job with your numbers and details and explanations. And it's much appreciated, even by the greater community, those who are actually tuned in. And it's helpful, very helpful. So
Thank you. Let's see. So next, every year, you get to hear me talk at length about past, current, and future projects. And so part of this, there's a resolution buried in here. It's our 5-year bridge priority list. I am very happy to report that is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, which is fantastic. That was a goal that I've talked about since I started. And so what I wanted to do, this is the 6th time I've done this update. And so we'll talk about 2025 projects, 2026 projects, and then a couple that we have out there into the future if we have a contract for design services. And then we'll talk funding a little bit too. So this was actually, speaking of drones, Commissioner Storley, we were touching on that before the meeting. Here's a drone shot from one of our bridge inspections. MnDOT employs drones to help with some of the more complicated structures, so it's kind of neat that we can participate in that. As you guys know, there are alligators in Cross River up the Gunflint, and so just be cautious when you're up there. I don't think, they're not in season right now, so we should be okay.
In the winter, they're a lot chiller.
Yeah, it's chiller. I like it. But like I mentioned, we'll go over 2025, we'll talk about 2026, we'll go over some design services, talk about funding, and then a quick wrap-up at the end. So 2025, Spruce Creek, so down on Cascade Beach Road, we had a bridge replacement down there. That was funded through bridge bonds and then our local project funds a little bit. Northland Construction was awarded that. So you can see our original bid was just under $810,000. Final cost, they dug a smaller hole. Is basically how we save money sometimes. So we think the hole should be this big. They dig a slightly smaller hole. We end up saving $20,000. So I ain't going to complain about that. That was completed. Pretty straightforward project last summer. This one kind of highlights some things I like to do where I'm a big proponent of concrete structures, but we can have a nice looking timber railing to fit our aesthetics around here. Tofty Park Road, that one is 98% complete at this point. We do have to go back next summer, just a lot of times because our construction season's so short. Revegetation efforts, gussy up some things, basically put the final bow on it. But you can see this was transportation sales tax funded, and so that's that half-cent tax that we have up here. I think projects like this are a great use of those funds, little neighborhood roads to leverage that TST fund. KGM had that work, and so our original bid, just over $750,000, and you can see our final cost. That'll probably change once we're done, but I don't anticipate it changing much, and so we're basically right on budget with that. Our CASA 17 realignment and Timber Bridge, and so you're probably asking, why am I still talking about this? That one dragged into another season because if you remember, we had to make the bridge longer. A lot of conversations with the DNR and the band up there about, in particular, that bridge. And so what this project was, though, is it realigned traffic off of the historic Stone Arch Bridge, and so we made a new crossing just north of that, and then we realigned the intersection a little bit down there and have the new bridge on there. And so you can see this was bridge bonds and state aid money. Redstone Construction did a great job. You can see the original bid was 2.6. Final was just over 2.9. Again, that additional cost was because we had to make the bridge longer. Subsequent, costs are with that. It's a great project to wrap up. And you want to talk about collaboration. I think that was, I lost track of all the different acronyms that we had, government acronyms that were involved with this project. It's fantastic. So, yeah, what a wonderful project. Our big Gunflint project, and so there's a lot that I need to think of a cleaner title for it, but it was Mill the Hill, so we resurfaced the road going up. We had the Little Devil Track River Bridge replacement, the big bridge that we're all familiar with at this point. Soil and Water did a great stream restoration project adjacent to ours, right in the Little Devil Track River, and then we resurfaced Cutoff Road as well. So big project, fantastic. So we had a bunch of different a bunch of different funding sources on this project. Some of them were federal. We had about $9 or $10 million in grants that were secured for this project. So you can see our low bid came in at about $11.6 million. And so that additional funding would just come from our state aid allocation. So the money we get from the state every year to do these types of projects. That one is still, we have some final punch list things to wrap up this summer. And then I'll have a better cost for you about this time next year. 2026. So what's great is I'm only waiting on one more project to open bids this year. So we're actually tracking really good schedule-wise. But the first one we've talked about a lot here is the multi-use trail that'll go in on the Gunflint. So if you remember, that's going to pick up in front of GES, in front of the LEC, wrap around the Gunflint, around my office in the school, come down 5th Avenue West there. Again, a lot of different grant funding on this. Transportation Alternatives, which is federal, Active Transportation, which is state, and then CRP, I think is county, or Carbon Reduction Program, there we go, funding to pursue construction on this project. 10-foot wide trail along the Gunflint, 6-foot wide down 5th Avenue to match up in front of the recycling center. This was awarded to MJ Companies for $830,000. We'll start this after the 4th, and then the goal is to wrap it up before school starts. And so then we'll have a nice new trail through there. Our Pine River Bridge, so way at the end of the Arrowhead Trail, literally at the end of what we own as the county. Is a bridge that sits there that we are responsible for. And so it's kind of one of those ones where I don't want to say a bridge to nowhere, because I know a lot of people have cabins and places up there, but it is always kind of funny when you see the dot on the map literally in the middle of nowhere that we're responsible for. And so this will be a special town bridge funded, and then some local funds. The UT road designation, that's the special town bridge. And so funding for that will come mainly from that pot. Redstone was awarded this recently for $1.8 million, and that'll start again after the 4th. Yeah, 1.8 in the middle of nowhere.
Can't believe that.
It's what it is. And it's nothing fancy. It's
Madam Chair, and Robbie, if I could just ask, so that bridge right now, that's all constructed with timber?
correct.
Yeah. And what's your projection, Mr. Concrete Man?
Concrete.
Yeah.
So we'll put, so a lot of cost too can come from, we want to make sure there's a bypass so people can get to and from their place. So we'll have a temporary bypass as the bridge is being built. But yeah, I mean,
That's a lot of money for that.
Right,
little
it is.
Skip across the.
it's the
So
cost of doing business.
What's
Yeah,
the
unfortunately.
timeline as far as how long you think, I mean, how much can be done so that the transition happens as quickly as possible?
Structures like this, we've seen about 3 months.
Yeah.
Is generally how that goes. We did a very similar one in Hoveland a couple years ago across the Flute Reed on the North Road, and that was about 3 months. And so, yeah, barring any weird complications or anything, I would expect, so what's that, July, October, we should be wrapped up.
I just have a question about the cost of concrete.
Oh, sure.
undoubtedly it's going to be higher. So how does, it's just how do you, the people, who's doing this?
Redstone.
Redstone, so they have a rider in their contract that they will adjust for price increases on?
Oh, no, nope. This is what we awarded here at the board meeting, I think it was just under 1.8 if I remember. That's the cost, unless we change something.
Okay,
Right. I think the only thing we have in our contracts that could potentially change depending on cost is a fuel escalation clause. Yeah,
Sure.
but that's about it, which is very common. Staying over on the east end, resurfacing the Arrowhead Trail and the Otis Creek Bridge. We've talked about that a lot as well. That'll be a state aid funded project along with some bridge bonds for the Otis Creek crossing. It's 2.5 mile mill and overlay. That we awarded to Hewlin Brothers pretty recently for $2.1 million. And we're going to start that as early as we can. The tentative date is May 18th, but it's really dependent on road restrictions. And we've talked about that a lot here. Our roads get really soupy in the spring, and so it just depends when we're able to haul. But the sooner the better, so. Across the street, across the highway from that one, we have Chicago Bay Road. What's neat with that one is, again, same construction company, so I think that coordination is going to be really nice there with Hewlin Brothers. Again, very similar to our Tofty Park Road project. This is TST funded. Great little neighborhood project, great little neighborhood road. I think it's a great use of those funds. We're going to start this one after the 4th. And so the hope is they can get rolling on the Arrowhead project, get that a well-oiled machine, and then come in and do this one. This is the last one we're waiting for. It's out for bid right now. Gunflint resurfacing between the 92s. And so, like I said, it's out for bid as we speak. I believe we open bids on, it says it, wonderful, March 24th. That's another one where I want them to start as soon as possible. It's going to be a big, big project. You can see, I think it's 4.25, almost 5 miles of road. We're going to resurface and replace all the culverts there. That one, we were awarded local road improvement funds, which is fantastic. It's about $1.5 million in a competitive state grant that we got for this, and then the remainder will come from our state aid funds.
and will you have flagmen, or how will you, one lane at a time?
We're going to see. I think we're going to have to figure out who the contractor is first. And then, as far as culvert replacements and that type of thing, it's really going to depend. I don't want to hard close the Gunflint. I don't think that's, for at least a long term, I don't think that's a good option. But this is rare that we actually do have a detour route. So you have County Road 92. Is it great? No. But is it at least an option? Yes. And so I could see it being short-term detours. I could see it, to your point, Commissioner White, of maybe it's northbound traffic goes on to County Road 92, southbound traffic stays on the Gunflint. We're going to play it by ear. And whether it's flaggers or we've had really good luck with the automated lights, that works really well too. So to be determined.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Since it seems like it's really tight. Don't want to curse anything. The timeline.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, don't want to curse anything,
No.
but there's a chance it could go to 27.
Oh, absolutely, it could. Yeah. And I think no different than our Mill to Hill project. That's a very similar time frame, although there's no giant bridge on this project. And so that's where I'm comfortable. I think this could be a nice one-season thing. But, parts of it, the revegetation, as we've touched on a lot, if that goes into 27, to me, that's a success. That's fine. I think the majority of this, from what I've seen over the years, is this is a good one-season project.
I just meant, like, if you're starting in May and here we are,
I know.
it seems like people might have their, anyways, okay.
And we'll do to the, and I didn't touch on this before, but with all the East End projects, we're going to plan on doing a town hall over there. I'm not sure when, closer to construction start date, late April, early May. And so then we'll have a good idea then on timeframes and what people can expect. Similarly with, especially with this project going, we'll head up to the SCAP
Yep.
up there, and we'll do a little town hall up there so people know what to expect with construction.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is out for bids, but when you get your bid in, you're looking at the dollar amount, but there's room for evaluation based upon our experience, our reputation of whoever the firm is that is conducting the work. And where I'm going with this is that when you get a bid in, you say, oh, I love working with this company, and they're right on top of everything. They don't dilly-dally around, and so we move through. And certainly that's an expectation that we present, given the nature of our arteries and dependency on them. But I just wonder how much of that is what you're looking and stating the expectation and the awareness that they do try to move forward as quickly as they can.
Yeah, and we have, in our contracts, there's different ways you can do it, but we have start and end dates, or you can say you have, 100 days to do this, either or. And then there's incentives, and disincentives,
Yes.
one way or another for meeting those. And so
Yeah.
that is something, and they're looking to finish the project too, because at the end of the day, they want to get paid and move
Yeah.
on to the next thing. So that's a good point, though.
Thank you.
So that was it for 20, I shouldn't say that was it. We have like 4 or 5 projects. That's a lot. We're going to be very busy. I think my staff already yelled at me. We'll go back to like 3 or 4 and 27. So design services, this includes in-house designs as well. So what is our staff working on? One of them that we've touched on that will go in 2026, and we're wrapping up right now, is that North Road resurface. So just that little stretch of pavement there on the west end of the North Road, we're putting some plans together with that. And so now that we know who's doing the Arrowhead and who's doing Chicago Bay, we'll submit that to them and get a price that way. And then additionally, we've talked about this one in the past, the Caspers Hill Road. There's a culvert on there. It's not a bridge, it's just a culvert. But it does wash out almost every single year. And so that was something identified by our maintenance department. And so we'll use some buzzwords. I love the synergy here that happened in our department, where they let us know about that. We looked at it and then confirmed, this is severely undersized. So we did the hydraulic design in-house. It was small enough. It was weird to flex those muscles again in my head and one of our other staff members' heads, so that was kind of fun. But we'll use local project funds for that. That's a big reason why we set up that account, that local project fund account, is for stuff like this. And so we've touched on the culvert inventory in the past. This is because of that. And so thank you guys for being on board and willing to support that. But we'll aim for 2027 construction here with this one. A couple other projects in-house, once those are wrapped up. I like the name on this one. We just called it the Pity Pave. There's several gravel pits off of the Ball Club Road that we want to have paving to. As we touched on, we want a different name? Okay. But road restrictions are a thing we've touched on a lot. If that road gets paved, that helps us a lot. That means we can start projects sooner, which is fantastic. Gravel roads are limited in spring load restrictions to 5 tons. Paved roads are 10 tons. So that means we can start construction sooner if we're able to do things like that. This was also a priority identified within our department of paving to our gravel pits. So as we talk about also extending pavement on the Arrowhead Trail up to Irish Creek, there's 2 big gravel pits, one that we work out of with the DNR, and then the private pit up there with the Labodas that a lot of construction happens out of. So having pavement to our aggregate resources is going to help us. But that's something we'll work on soon. We're planning for 2029 construction with that. Again, that would be a local project, TST funded type of thing. And then Fall River Road, the traffic count on that one, it's kind of been identified as one that we should convert that to pavement. It's all uphill as well, as you all are familiar with that area, so it gets washboardy really quick. Traffic on it also kind of warrants that shift into paving it. And so we're going to aim for 2030 with that one. I know that feels very far away, but it comes very, very quick. And so that one is state aid funded. So that's CASA 13, if I remember right. Additional design services. So Woods Creek, we're working with LHB. They're finalizing the contract right now. But this is one where we have a bridge on County Road 60 that's deficient, so that needs to be replaced. Additionally, on Woods Creek, further down on Lindskog Road, is a bridge that is actually, it's perched. It's a culvert, but it's perched, so fish can't get through it. And so we were awarded some outdoor heritage funds to replace that one. And in addition, it was identified that kind of paving that first little chunk of Lindskog, because it's all uphill and on a curve, would be beneficial. And so we're working with LHB on that contract. We'll aim for 2027 construction there.
So, I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry.
The paving on Lindskog is just beyond Woods Creek, or
Yeah, so off of 61, just the first like quarter mile.
.3? Yeah. I just didn't know where that landed exactly, but
Yes,
okay.
yeah. I could have drew a line instead of a star, sorry.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Flute Reed, this is the one that's been in the works for a while as well. Lower Camp 20 Road, we have a bridge there that is undersized and deficient. We're working with MSA on that one. We're recommending changing it into a beam span bridge instead of a culvert. It's really undersized right now. What was interesting is when they did the survey on it, you think of a river generally has it's a U shape or it's a V, right? You know where the bottom is. This one has been so undersized for so long, it's turned into a W. So it's got 2 low points on it, which is a big flag. And I'm sure Commissioner White is very aware that floods every single year. And it's real nasty. And so that's one where the recommendation was to install a beam span bridge. We're aiming for 2027 construction. Funding, again, it's UT 70, and so that would be a special town bridge. Fall River. So this is another one that's got a few different crossings on it. 2 of them are on CASA 6. One of them is on Brandon Lane right there. But we're working with MSA on the design. But we were awarded $1.4 million in the Outdoor Heritage Fund. It's kind of the sister fund to the LCCMR stuff to replace these crossings. So we'll go after bridge bonds as well to be a nice match. But then we had 3 crossings that were identified as undersized. Again, I'll use the word synergy from our maintenance department. The southern crossing was identified as kind of a big flag for them. It's a big, if you're familiar with that area, it's a big downhill. And that crossing is really undersized. If you look off the road, I don't want to say it's straight down, but it's darn close. So it is actually scary. And then when you get down there, you can almost see through due to all the erosion there. So this will be a big project, but a nice one. And we're aiming for 2028 with that. One we've touched on a lot recently, and especially last week even, down at the legislature, is the end 10 miles of the Gunflint Trail. We have a pretty big lobbying effort going right now to secure funding for this. To date, we've secured about $3 million to this project. Our estimate is about $15 million total is what that project will cost. We're finalizing the contract with LHB, but if you remember, it's resurfacing the end 10 miles of the Gunflint. There's about 16 culverts that need to be replaced, and then potentially 4 bridges as well. Funding would come from a lot of different sources, but then we're aiming for 2028 construction. Couple more slides, promise. Alternative funding. So I touch on this a lot. I've touched on it in this presentation, but it's something I try and talk about a ton. You can see over the years how much money we've been able to secure by going out and getting it. Most of these are competitive grant applications. I think we're averaging about $4.5 million annually at this point in time, and outside funds coming into the county to do construction. But in total, since 2021, we've been able to secure about $23 million in outside funding, bringing that into the county to do infrastructure work. That's something I'm very, very proud of.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Robbie. Yeah, I appreciate this slide is significant, I think, for the community to be aware of this $23 million in outside funding. It would be interesting to see, and again, dependent upon how much land you have within your county and what your infrastructure consists of, but you take that, per mile, what that translates to. If we were to look at it historically within Cook County, of course, inflation in dollars increase in their value. But in my experience, the resourcefulness is significant, so you have reason to be very, very proud of it. I think that resourcefulness is something that is a consistent theme when it comes to trying to do more with less within government. And the more that we can see department heads or the community be resourceful in trying to generate revenues that are not totally dependent on taxpayer dollars. And this is a huge slide, so just appreciate your efforts. It's not just the energy you involve in it, but it's your knowledge and the way you go about securing those dollars, so thank you.
I appreciate it. And honestly, it goes to show, too, with your guys' support. I can't do this without your guys' support and then my staff's support as well. So thank you for letting me do that. So in short, we've talked about a lot, but 2025, we had about $16 million in construction. 2026, a little bit less, we'll have about $10 million. But then in our total design services that we have out there is, about $23.5 million worth of projects in the works at this point in time. So appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions? Talked about a lot.
Commissioner Mills?
Perchance, will you be presenting to the city council?
We can as projects come up that are relevant, for sure.
Okay.
I think right now, there's nothing in the foreseeable future. I think the closest thing, if you look at our 10-year transportation plan, would be 8th Avenue West.
Yeah.
If I remember right, I think I said 2033.
5.
5? Okay, wonderful. So even further away. So I think conversations with projects, on the whole, I really don't want to start having town halls or anything like that until we're 2, maybe 3 years away.
Sure.
3
Yeah.
years if it's a big project, sure. And so, as we talk about like our lobbying effort, and, I know where you're going with this, with Broadway in Wisconsin specifically, we don't even have a date.
Okay.
And so I think until I have a date and until we're about 3 years away from that, then that's a great time to start those conversations.
And if I can add, Madam Chair, as well, Robbie and I had discussed this just briefly before the meeting this morning, and I mentioned that I would also be reaching out to Administrator Roth, just so that he's aware of this presentation and has the information, and if he has any questions or if the city council has questions, we'll certainly answer those at this time. Yep.
Over the years, I think I reflect back when I worked with Brady on getting the 0.5% sales tax. That was unusual for people to ask about that, and we did it. And then a few other counties applied, and they were turned down.
Oh?
It was so new with the legislators to think about. I don't know if we can.
And at that time,
Support
it
all
seemed
these
like it
people.
wasn't significant,
I-
but,
Yeah.
but we said we'll pool it,
Yeah,
and it'll become significant, so.
yeah. So there you are. We try to do our work too.
I appreciate you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robbie, for all of that. Goodness me, that's a lot. Into the future, I mean, that's, that's wonderful. So now we're going to have a report from Human Resources and give us some updates.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so I've got a handful of job description and job grade updates to provide you today. Since Rowan is up here, I guess we could do the three MIS.
Any order is fine.
Any order is fine, okay. Well, maybe, if you're okay waiting a little longer, maybe we'll tackle the one then first, okay. So in your packet, there are the specific handouts, including, I feel like I haven't done one of the job description review topics recently, so getting back to it. So when DDA does the job description review, job grade, job classification review process, typically they provide a memo as to the final decision, and if there's a grade change, typically then there'll be a short synopsis of why they recommend the job change. And then also in the board packet is the proposed new job description. So the first job that we're talking about today is a new position. We currently don't have it, but you may be aware that there has been discussion around adding kind of like a backup position to support not only the auditor's office, but the county recorder's office as well. So this is the proposed position. It's the accounting and records specialist. Again, it'll be shared about 25 hours with the auditor's office, and then 10 hours, I should say per week, 10 hours with the recorder's office. So that is proposed at a job grade of 150. Again, that position will be split up in providing a lot of backup support to the various roles in the auditor's office, as well as backup and processing support in the recorder's office.
Yes.
Did you say it's divided 25 hours and 10 hours? So it's
Correct.
not
So
a
it's-
full-time position?
It's considered a full-time at 35 hours a week.
Okay.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank you for your work on this, and also thank Auditor Treasurer Powers and the Recorder's Office as well for working on the job description. we approved the position, and I stepped off the Personnel Committee. I had questions. It's like, where is this going? And I really appreciate all the effort you've put into it. I think this position has been needed for a really long time, and I'm happy to see this coming to fruition.
So
White?
so that will ensure that with the disappearance of our key people in those two departments because of some good reason, that the basic knowledge and everything will continue to hum along. Yes?
Yeah, I'm curious on who's disappearing, but yeah.
Department heads.
Okay.
Brady and
Yes.
Holly.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Well, hopefully we'll have Holly quite a bit longer. Brady may be
Just
a
in
little
case,
sooner.
but this is
Holly.
something, it's a security blanket, it's insurance for us.
I think what we tend to find in our departments, because we are a small community, we've got a smaller staff, is we have very kind of focused, specialized positions where there's not a lot of ability to do, or we haven't had the time capacity to focus on cross-training and providing backup support. So I think one of the big things right here in this position is support for both our finance controller, Kelly Berg, and then our payroll specialist, Nick Honer, as well, where those are like very specialized work areas. And so if they're gone, there isn't really anyone trained to back up those types of services. So it's adding depth where we're able to make sure that they're not work to the point where they're burnt out and they have support.
And my memory of the conversations too is it's not just that, right? That's
No,
a
it's never
bonus,
just- yeah.
right? A very excellent bonus, but it's really just the sheer workload right now. And then, correct, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and to that point, I can add, there have been some changes, and Brady can talk about this in more detail if needed, but there have been some changes to our audits and other things that have added additional workload for the staff within the auditor's office. So it is backup for several different areas within the county, but it's also, like you mentioned, taking on some of that work because we have a couple staff that have had extensive overtime to make sure that we're meeting the needs and the requirements, so that will bring that cost down and will have a positive impact for us as we move forward.
Mr. Gamble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Is that additional time for audit precipitated by the change in who we're using to conduct that audit? Or just the complexity of the audit changing?
It's that we're doing more of the work than we did when the state auditors did it. We wanted to do that. We wanted to be more involved, understand it. That's why we made the change to RedPath. And the savings in money was secondary. It was important, but
Yeah.
we've saved, and we're estimating probably where we would be now. We're saving $50,000 a year from the state auditors.
Yeah, yeah.
And, but it has put a greater burden on the workload for providing that audit.
Yeah.
And so we need to take care of that.
But I
Yeah.
think it's, in evaluating, that's a key component, the fact that we understand it better and
Yeah.
we own it, and that internal awareness is reinforcing the credibility of the audit. Yeah. Otherwise, if you have somebody else come and do the whatever and stuff, and you don't know the detail of it, but this is a discussion we had, a number of
Right.
years ago too, so. But just wanting to understand, is it because of the change of the nature, but it's the change, we're saving money and we're also learning more about the process and what we do in that regard, as opposed to having outside people, yeah.
So I'll make a motion to approve the job description for the accounting and records specialist.
I'll support that.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. Okay, so the next three positions all fall within the Information Systems Department. There's a little more complexity, I would say, behind kind of the changes here. So I've asked our Information System Director, Rowan Watkins, to be here today to assist in the conversations, because I'm sure you have questions that will be kind of outside my subject area. But basically what the synopsis is we currently have kind of 3 of the primary positions in the MIS department. We've got our help desk specialist, we've got our IT analyst, IT technician, and then our systems administrator. So what Rowan has proposed, and he brought this to the personnel committee several months ago, to talk about, like, these are his thoughts in kind of proposing a restructuring of these positions for various reasons. So we've gone through the job description review and through the work that he's done with his staff to kind of lay out and with more of a focus on, I would say, cross-training, just like with the other position that we just approved, a more focus on progression as people cross-train and there's more support and backup of the various functions required of the MIS department. So there's a proposal to change kind of the structure and the naming of the current positions. So the help desk specialist would be proposed renamed as an IT analyst 1. The IT technician right now would be renamed IT Analyst 2, and the systems administrator would be renamed Security and Systems Engineer. So those all encompass different revised, updated job descriptions. And then 2 of the positions, there's a recommendation to change the job grade as well. So the IT Analyst 1, that grade would change from a 150 to a 160. The IT Analyst 2 would remain the same at a 170, and then the Security and Systems Engineer proposed change from a 180 to a 190.
Mr. Gamble.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I recall the discussion vaguely, but I know it was detailed when you brought it, to the Personnel Committee, Rowan. It's trying to create alignment within the department that makes sense when you step back and you take a look at it and just say, we'd be better off if we did this based upon these things we're trying to accomplish, which is progression and distribution of responsibilities as well. I think when something is informed by our lived experience and our foresight moving forward to realign the department so it's going to work better and it transitions more smoothly, that all makes sense. In my experience in Personnel Committee previously, a lot of times department heads would come into the Personnel Committee and we review a job description and it didn't meet the requirement for a change in grade. So the department head go back and change the title or change something in order to get it to fall within, where the marble they wanted it to land. That approach I don't like, but a well-reasoned, thought-out makes sense, and that's why when it came before the Personnel Committee, it was, well represented why you're doing what you're doing, and Allison referenced that. I'm in agreement with the proposal, and over the course of this tenure in this position as commissioner, when I've been opposed to these proposals, it is based solely not on the individuals nor necessarily the rationale that informs the position, but it is the basis under which value has been determined that I have a problem with. And so I don't want to send a wrong message and be disrespectful in recognizing the work and the thought that has gone into this in the department and through Human Services. But it is the basis under which, when these pay grades change, we're linking it to a foundational determination on value that I have a real problem with. And so that's where my opposition comes.
Sure. Well, Commissioner, I appreciate that, and I think kind of to add some context for the rest of the board and the public to those conversations that happened in the Personnel Committee, really what we're looking at doing here is how can we in the most efficient way meet the emerging needs and maintain levels of service for this department and the organization that we support. And if I was to kind of group that into sort of 3 buckets of what's really driving this, I would highlight organizational growth, redundancy and capability, right, being one deep, like we talked about in other places, is a risk that's been identified, and then an increased focus on security. And so as I kind of go through each of those, as we
support other departments and the organization that grows around us. You know, we can move things around and have support and prioritize things to a certain extent. And I think a piece of historical context that I think is helpful for this conversation is this department has been really good at that. As the organization grows around us, maintaining a real flat number of staff and a relatively flat budget, all things considered. So when you look at the IT help desk specialist currently, that position was identified and created as a half-time position by my predecessor several years before her retirement. And it wasn't actually filled until when I was in this role. And at that time, we came before the board, and I highlighted then that since it was identified and created as a need for that position, the county as an organization had added 20 staff, 20 positions since then. And the need for support had only increased. And so when we talked about that, where we went through all the different ways and things that we've done to try to be more efficient and provide services in a way that we can, but without sacrificing the level of service that we provide, eventually there's a tipping point there. And in this case, what I think we're at now is how can we kind of realign job duties and restructure to meet all those different needs without adding staff. So in particular, on security, this is a conversation that's happening all across the state, all across the nation, but in particularly often that I see in my peers, IT, MIS directors across the state, and they're struggling with this. How do they add security staff? And it's a multifaceted problem. The skill set demands high salary. I often hear it referred to as an intern program, where they're essentially hiring people who they think have the skill set and investing in them and training them up, only for them to then leave and go take a private sector job because they now have the security skill set. And so I think for us, we're in a really good position, and for us as a department, for us as an organization, for the taxpayer, where we can just reassign duties to the people who have the skill set and the potential to meet these needs. And so rewording and rewriting the job descriptions to address those needs is the most efficient way to do this. We're not adding staff. There's an added cost, right? And so we're shifting, adding more responsibility to staff, creating a progression, and we're formalizing cross-training and overlap in the job descriptions amongst each other, so they're not so siloed and independent, and that eliminates risk, right? Where you have one person who's gone, nobody else knows how to do that. Whatever your problem is that person specially just has to wait. And so there's all those added values, and I think this is by far the most efficient way to do that. And when we look at the cost that's been included in the agenda packet, we're talking $1 an hour on 2 positions. And there's more long-term cost than that, but for me, I see a lot of return on value in that investment, that positions us really, really well for potential turnover and growth within the department, and ability, again, to just meet emerging needs and maintain levels of service. And not all of this is our control, right, in the IT department. I mean, in a lot of ways, we're trying to be strategic in how we're reacting to different things, where, going back to when that help desk position was first created, something happens like HDC leaves town or other services leave, and now we're needing to staff up in PHHS, or, vacation rentals is so big that we're adding a position in land services department to do that, or the county attorney's office, right? There's all these different things that happen to us, and it's not just staff that we support too, but it's facility growth, right? So now, just within this last year, we're networking, the highway department's added garage, and we're networking and providing office support to the new offices in the basement. Then we have an LEC project that we're going to be doing some significant expansion on, and the infrastructure costs and the support of that infrastructure is all tied into part of this. So how do we, again, address and meet those needs, and do it in a really efficient way? And I think this is that. And that's why we bring forward the recommendation that we do.
Administrator Drupal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a lot to add because I think Rowan did an excellent job covering everything. I just want to also say that I think this is a very strategic approach to meet the needs within this department, and I've appreciated the work that Rowan has done on this, and I fully support it.
I think it's great because he's casting the net out from a 10,000-foot view, and that's what we needed to understand the growth and just adding offices in our courthouse basement and all of that. So appreciate that wider net. Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rowan. I think just foundationally that in addressing this for the public, that the public sees, they'll read the newspaper, if they're listening in, they see that we're adding staff in places, we're constantly coming before the board and changing, the grade, and the staff wonder what is going on. And I think integrity and process is hugely important. Oftentimes, I think we've experienced in life that sometimes we don't like what is happening or what we're seeing, but we respect those that are bringing these things forward, and we respect the integrity of their process. And so that tends to mitigate some of the sense of, my goodness, we're just continue to add layer and layer of cost to doing governance. And in this situation, and I know, Administrator Treble, that our intention is to create structures that demonstrate that integrity and process, so that what we do has consistency and that we are accountable to what we are doing. It makes it much easier. We just had the presentation from the Highway Department, and comments made that we respect the work that Robbie does and his approach to it. And the said can be same said in your department as well. People earn their opportunities by how they handle what has been entrusted to them, and you certainly have demonstrated that in your position. You demonstrated prior to stepping into the position in the ID department. The other thing from the human resource standpoint is that we have a commitment to our employees as well as to our community, and being stewards of the financial side as well as representing what it is we're asking as a community of people to do. And so normal and customary best practices relative to evaluating job descriptions, so they're reflective of what we're asking people to do, based upon a credible process of evaluating and being strategic, that this is a process that is building integrity into our structure when it comes to how we handle personnel and meet the needs of the community. So the reason I preface my comments with the foundational comment is that we are trying to build a system that we can be proud of, and that our department heads are earning the respect and the trust of those people that work under them, because we're committing to this process. And for me, with the change in our administrative position, we looked at different candidates, and the candidate that we selected was based upon those foundational components that we believe this is somebody that can shepherd us through this process, so that the decisions we made are based on sound reasoning and good financial management. It takes me back to the one, issue that I have in this regard, that the foundation under which we are making these decisions that relative to dollars, that is something that I question. But I do want to affirm the process and the credibility that we build into this process in human resource and department heads. So it's a lot of words, but I think it's important for the community to understand, because what they see is, oh my goodness, here we go again. Oh my goodness, here we go again. And so how often should this happen? Unfortunately, counties, and counties are not alone in this regard, it's been years since we've taken a look at some things. When it comes to comp studies, it's been years. And then when we address it, counties, it's like a popcorn effect. Everybody says, oh my goodness, we should do a COP study. Oh my goodness, we need to do this. And so building a routine and that's an expectation makes employees feel comfortable that there are processes that have that integrity and demonstrate it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Commissioner Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the job descriptions and the 2 grade changes for Analyst 1 and 2 and the Security and Systems Engineer positions.
Support.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for describing everything in good detail.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
It's been brought to my attention that we did not approve the resolution related to the Highway Department's 5-year bridge priority item, so at some point, we'll need to address that today.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution for the 5-year bridge project, priority project update.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention. We were so enamored in what he's doing out to 2035. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously on all the work that Robbie has done and the group, the whole group out there. Okay, we'll move on to Auditor Brady.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request to set a date for a public hearing to consider fee changes. We have one that, for land services, this is where this is coming from, they'll be asking for a septic system compliance inspection fee change, but we'll also look at others that other departments may have. So the request would be to set a date out to the first meeting in April, would give us enough time to inform other departments and see who else might need a change.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to set the public hearing for April 14th at 9:30 a.m. For the fee changes in our county system.
Support.
Okay, so 9:30 a.m., April 14th. Any questions or comments to Brady? Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brady, when we've looked at this before, we've had a comparison. We see where we're at, we see
Yeah.
our last change, we see what other counties are doing, whatever, so we have a context basically for making that
Yeah,
recommendation.
we'll have that.
Yeah.
So you'll have that the week, it'll be in your board packet for that meeting.
And so there'll be a discussion and, comments to inform that in enough
Yeah.
time in advance of this public hearing.
Right.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously for our public hearing. Okay, thanks on that, Brady. So we'll move on to Administrator Treble.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the unfortunate opportunity to announce that our sheriff has provided me with a letter of resignation yesterday. And he has worked here in Cook County, I believe, for 31 years, and is a very well-respected and valued member of our team and of the community. So I'd like to thank him for his service, and I'd also like him to please come up to the mic so that we can thank him. We'll have opportunities in the future as well, as I'm sure there will be a celebration for him. But wanted to provide him an opportunity to address the board as well.
Thank
So I'll
you for
turn it
that.
over to you.
I just want to tell you all, I appreciate everything you have done. I appreciate working with you. It's been my honor and my pleasure being part of Cook County while you were here. So thank you so much.
If you've served 31 years, which you have, then you must have started at age 8, because you're still 39 years of age, right?
I wish I was.
You're a little kid running around with that little sheriff badge that you got in your Christmas stocking. Yeah.
I never wanted to be in law enforcement when I was a kid.
Wow.
So I believe procedurally, we need to accept his resignation as an elected official.
So, Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to accept the resignation, understanding that it's always difficult to say goodbye to somebody that's served for a long time and somebody that we consider a friend.
Support.
I don't think we have any questions, do we?
I could
Other
come
than to
up-
thank you.
I could come up with one, but
Oh, well,
be
okay.
superfluous.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all so much.
You're released.
Almost.
Almost.
Thank you, Sheriff. All right, so the second item is to discuss the upcoming sheriff vacancy. So our sheriff's last day will be on May 8th. And I understand that we've been through this process before for the county attorney. And so I just wanted to place this on the agenda so that we can have a discussion about how we want to proceed. I also want to point out that in the sheriff's resignation letter, he did have a recommendation, and I can read it to you. He states, to ensure the continuation of services and a smooth transition, he recommends appointing the Chief Deputy, Ben Hallberg, to the position of interim Cook County Sheriff. So with that, I want to turn it over to the board for discussion related to how you would like to proceed with this vacancy.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm assuming that Sheriff has spoke with Ben, and that Ben would be acceptable to stepping into that role. When we did this previously, when Commissioner Starley and I were on the board, we had a couple individuals that were looking at this, and so the board had to make a determination of where we go. Part of that looking at it is that if this being an elected position, those individuals that are expressing interest in that position, in the previous case, I think that was what we were experiencing, so we wanted to make sure that we were evaluating this on a basis that didn't show preference for one individual candidate over the other. In this situation, I would say that the recommendation coming from the sheriff, as well as Ben expressing his interest in running, there's a sense of risk involved in doing that, serving that role prior to the election. In other words, it's an opportunity to demonstrate that he's capable, reinforcing the reasons why you should vote for him. But if there are individuals in our previous experience that would be interested, then we would evaluate it, I assume, on that basis. But if we have no other individuals that are expressing interest, and if we feel that a candidate who would step into that role is capable, then that would seem to be the smoothest transition at this point, but just...
Madam Chair, if I may respond?
Yes.
I did have a conversation with the sheriff and asked if he had discussed this with Ben Hallberg, Chief Deputy Hallberg, and he said he had.
Okay.
So that's the information that I am aware of.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also say that the role of deputy chief is one where that individual stands in for the sheriff. That's part of the role, if in fact they're unable to serve for illness or whatever reason there might be. So I would fully support having Ben Hallberg as an interim until the election identifies a winner for Cook County Sheriff.
And I would just say, is there anything from, anyone's experience that would just say, is there anything else we should be considering prior to making a recommendation?
Commissioner Mills?
I would say with the county attorney's position, there was a little bit of a process. I don't even remember the origins of it or how it all came together, but for consistency's sake, we could do that. I, too, am very comfortable with Ben in the position, so I'm not looking to drag anything out, but I just wanted, since you asked, I wanted to share that.
Well, I think it's important, and from our stewardship responsibility, we don't want to just say, yeah, well, here it is, let's just do it and move on. There's statute to consider if there's something that, when it comes to appointment, but assuming that there's nothing in statute that prohibits a recommendation coming from our sheriff, and as Commissioner Sullivan said, that person stepping in, that person be a candidate, I think it seems to be a natural progression, so I would be comfortable, making a motion of support, but.
Briefly, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I did go through the interview process. I would say anecdotally that is probably highly unusual for a county to do, and that the typical outcome in a situation like this would be for the board to accept the recommendation of the outgoing elected, or if there were concerns to not accept it and to open it up to either a special election or other format.
And I would say that the things that we're responsible for relative to this decision is that if the sheriff is making a recommendation, and if the individual that is being recommended to be a consultant is willing, and if the individual on top of that, which is not a necessity, is actually going to be a candidate for the position, and if that individual is equipped to do the job, which is our responsibility, putting somebody in there that would know what they're doing, and if it complies with statute and requirement, then I think we've done our due diligence. And as Commissioner Mills said, we don't have to drag this on to look like we're, building more credibility and process. I think we know what it is. I'd be comfortable making a decision that we would take the recommendation from our sheriff in putting Ben in that position on an interim basis.
Madam Chair, just the statute doesn't say anything regarding that part of the process. It just says that the county board must name a replacement who would serve until the end of the term or until the replacement is qualified. Say if nobody ran, for example. But it doesn't say anything further.
Thank you on that, Brady. Commissioner Sullivan?
So, Madam Chair, I think given our discussion here, I would like to recommend supporting Sheriff Eliasson's recommendation to have Deputy Chief Hallberg serve in the capacity of Cook County Sheriff beginning May 8th upon his resignation until January 1st, 2027, when the newly elected sheriff would be taking their oath of office.
Support?
Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to administrator updates.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So the first update I have is to make sure the public is aware that many of us spent a few days last week at the Association of Minnesota Counties Legislative Conference. I'm sure some of the commissioners will touch on this as well. But I wanted to share that we met with Senator Hochschild in his office, and we shared our priorities and had a great discussion with him. And Engineer Haas and I have met with several senators, representatives, and staff on the floor when we were over at the Capitol as well. So we spent a considerable amount of time on Thursday meeting people and following our lobbyists all around the Capitol so that we had an opportunity to do so. So it was a great couple days spent in St. Paul. I also wanted to mention, related to our lobbyists and our number one legislative priority this year, the Gunflint Trail, that we do have a House number and a Senate file number. It's House File 3811, Senate File 4261, and the Senate file was just introduced yesterday. Both bills were requesting $10 million in appropriation from the bond proceeds from the Transportation, Commissioner of Transportation for a grant to Cook County. Hauschild and Scraba are the authors of those two bills. So our lobbyist is tracking those, I'm tracking those as well, and so I'll keep you all in the loop on when we need to head back down to the Capitol and if there are opportunities to meet with folks and/or testify. We also met with our federal lobbyist yesterday as well about our federal legislation, and so she has submitted the House Community Project funding. So that's something that I understand we have done as a county in the past, and they're taking that on as our lobbyist. So they submitted that. We're requesting $8 million through the Federal Administration Highway Infrastructure Program, and that's through the House. The Senate has not opened up their portal yet, but we anticipate that that will be opening up very soon, and as soon as that's open, then we'll also be moving forward with entering information within the Senate for $8 million as well. Our lobbyist is requesting that we submit a letter to Representative Straba's office today, and so we have drafted that letter and are hoping that we can send that on behalf of the board. She did provide a draft for us, so wanted to make sure that as the lobbyist that she's making sure we're hitting all of the right points in that information. So once we have that, then she's also requesting that we all reach out to his office as well and ask for funding support. So I will send all of you information following the meeting today. I don't believe we need a formal approval on the letter because this is our bill. This is something that we're supporting as our #1 priority. So Jana took the time late in the day yesterday and got that prepared for us, so we're ready to send that out. So I think that's it on legislation, but this is moving very quickly, and so I'll make sure that we keep you in the loop on everything related to those 4 bills as we move forward.
Madam Chair, I know in the discussions that we had and the opportunities we had presenting this, now that we have a bill, just any feedback, any comment if that at this point in time it would be appropriate to share relative to sense of things, both from the lobbyist standpoint as opposed to our conversations with both of our representatives.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel very positive.
Yeah.
Our representatives are very supportive of this effort. When we were at the Capitol meeting with other senators and representatives, everyone was very excited and complimentary about the work that we put into this and supportive of how we're electing to move forward. So it was very energizing spending that time there and everyone that we talked to. So I feel pretty positive about where we're at. As Robbie discussed earlier today, we've already secured about $3 million for this project, and so I think we're in a good place right now.
Yeah. I think for legislators who are making decisions with limited dollars, that when they see the efforts that we've invested in this and they recognize the real importance, that those are 2 good things. I think when you're inundated with 87 counties and multiple commissioners and individuals coming and asking for things, that it can be a little overwhelming, and you try to be polite, and some of that ends up being a little more pretentious and not substantive in nature. That's why I asked the question. But I would agree that there's certainly support for it. It's just a matter if we can get the votes, from the legislation overall. And that's why we need as many voices as we can get to represent it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it also helps if community members reach out and support this effort. So I want to make sure I mention that to the community members that are listening. It's important for us, myself as administrator and the boards, of course, reaching out to representatives, but we also really encourage anyone in the community that supports this project to reach out as well.
Thank you.
Couple other
Okay.
updates, if I may, Madam
Yes.
Chair. Construction projects. I just wanted to mention that both our 2 large construction projects, the Law Enforcement Center and Transfer Station, are moving forward very nicely. We now have roofs on both, so we're very excited about that. And at the transfer station, we're pouring the first slab, hopefully within the next week. And at the LEC, the windows are being put in. So if you haven't had a chance to drive by, they're looking great and they're moving forward very nicely. I have two other updates very quickly. One is related to actually both are funding related. The first one is from the Gunflint Trail Volunteer Fire Department. They are submitting an application for a federal grant to acquire slip-on tanks. This would allow pickup trucks, ATVs, and trailers to be converted to tankers and combat wildfires. So they're just asking if the county would act as the entity to apply for this grant. They would do all of the paperwork and documentation. And so I've had a discussion with Auditor Powers about this, and typically what we do is we would apply for the grant, and then at the time that we receive the funding, we would bring it to the board for approval. So this is just really information for you to let you know that they have reached out, that we have agreed to do this, and are hoping that they're successful in securing this funding. And then the next one is the Lutzen Fire Department. They have applied for funding to purchase a drone. And it's my understanding that this would be used for emergencies, including search and rescue. There's no drone for Cook County that has a trained full-time resident to pilot it right now. And so if the Lutzen Fire Department was successful in securing this funding, we would be the first in the county. It would be donated to the Eastern Township. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, the Western, thank you. And let's see what else they said here. They said having a drone in our area would save time. The nearest is over 2 hours away, and it could potentially save time and save lives. So we have had 2 staff members provide a letter of support for this, Rowan Watkins from our MIS department and Mike Keyport, our emergency management.
Commissioner White?
I believe Colville Town Hall has a drone and a live-in year-round drone operator certified license.
Yes,
So-
the Colville Fire Department
Yeah.
does have Jordan Eckroot, who is an operator of a drone. He also works up at the Cook County Airport. But I think, given the distance, it's really important that we have a couple of drones in our county and fully support this.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. And I will make sure that when I reach back out to the Lutzen Fire Department, that they are aware that there is one in Colville as well.
And I will emphasize it tonight, too, because
Okay.
Yeah.
I went up to their open house. That's how I knew about the drone, was
Yeah.
going to Colville and then presenting it to the Lutzen Township. And so we have our annual meetings tonight, so we'll have.
And are not the communities like 70 miles apart or something like that, or 50 miles apart? It's-
Yeah.
It would not diminish the need for one in the West End at all.
Right, and the fact that we do have a trained person in the East End, but we'll also need one in
Yeah.
the West
Yeah.
End, too. Yeah, okay. Clarification is always good.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so then we'll move on to Commissioner report and meeting updates. We've been busy, you've been busy?
Well, basically, happy to announce that the Hub has 2 new board members that have stepped forward, and they would still like one more as a backup or as an extra, but they now have 7 board members, and they're feeling pretty good about that. So,
Okay. Anybody else? Commissioner Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had an opportunity to meet for Firewise about a week and a half ago, and had updates that we shared, primarily both Commissioner White and I, from the Highway Department, so that for Firewise, they would be aware of the construction and could understand how that would impact their work during the summer of 2026. We had a Soil and Water Conservation District meeting, and we're very thrilled that Amanda Weberg has been elected as the chair of the Minnesota DNR Statewide AIS Advisory Committee. And so in her role, she recommends AIS protection, management, and works on prevention and funding and policy improvements. And so we are very excited and know that that puts Cook County in a very great position with AIS. And then at AMC, just to add on with our administrator's remarks, I had a chance to attend, along with Commissioner Storley, testimony training and put myself out there in front of all the commissioners to provide testimony for the last 10 miles of the Gunflint Trail and get critical feedback on my performance. And I was 25 seconds too long. They really pay attention to time when you are at the legislature. So I appreciated that feedback and have adjusted remarks, and I'm ready to go before the bonding committee, the governor's office, wherever I am needed. And for our county day at the Capitol, I would just, I guess, reiterate that it was a great experience. We met in the Senate building with Senator Hochschild. Representative Scraba came in at the end, and we had an opportunity to spend time in a number of committee discussions. I was in education, transportation, where they were talking about autonomous vehicles. And then the final day, the Environment and Natural Resources Policy Committee met, and Neva Maxwell attended from Land Services, which was great, brought up a couple of really important questions. And we talked a little bit about the Wetland Conservation Act, because they have changes in the ratio of wetland replacement when you have transportation projects. So we thought that was really important, and had a chance to also speak with Assistant Commissioner Bob Meyer from the Minnesota DNR about some of our Cook County initiatives. So it was a great opportunity, and I look forward to going back in the very near future. Oh, I have one other thing. Sorry, Commissioner Gamble. Many of you have perhaps seen this, but next Monday, a really historic thing is going to happen in Grand Portage. There's a signing ceremony, and 3 distinct properties are being returned to Grand Portage thanks to the work of the Lloyd K. Johnson Foundation. So Paradise Beach, which is on the Lake Superior shoreline, Francis Island, that's part of the Susie Island archipelago, and also the Mineral Center Forest parcel is going to be returned to them. Wow. So that is a huge piece. It's about restorative justice, and I just couldn't be more thrilled that this is happening, and I want to thank Grand Portage for working with Lloyd K. and for the tremendous efforts they've put forth.
It's incredible.
Commissioner Trouble?
And Madam Chair, if I can share that at the AMC conference, I heard from several AMC staff what a wonderful job Commissioner Sullivan did in testifying and how prepared they felt she is for our legislation before the Senate and the House. So that was great to hear.
Well, as referenced, the legislative session, when we had met in the office and Representative Scraba showed up late, but he was there for a photo op. And then we have our annual dinner, which Commissioner Starley and I attend on Wednesday evening, which is through the northern counties. And we had partnered with the organization, the committee that you sit on, so we had a considerable group. Last year we had a fantastic turnout, and we had a larger room at Mancini's where we annually have held this ever since I've been on that committee, previous term as well. And that has grown, and we had 12 representatives that participated from the state legislature in that dinner. I sat across from the representative from Pine City, and again, when Representative Straba came in late, and I moved some papers quick and put my place setting there so that he could sit right, kitty corner from me. And last year, when Commissioner Mills was there, we had the opportunity to have that whole dinner evening discussion. And so I had considerable discussion with him, and he said, give him a call, so to be able to follow up with him on issues that we addressed was very good. So that is beneficial. There's a lot of shuffling that goes on. AMC provides an opportunity for representatives to come in during our event that evening, so that it's hors d'oeuvres and things that we can interact. But they were meeting, I believe, up till 7 o'clock, and so we had changed the Northern Counties meeting to 7 o'clock in order to accommodate that schedule. So it's always a moving target, but the participation was great. And every representative that was there expressed their appreciation, because those that are representatives out of the metro area go home at night, but these representatives from the northern tier do not. And to be able to associate and spend time with, constituents, and they really appreciate that, and getting the free meal. And I noticed that Scraba, who had, he chose the steak on the menu, that he had some left over, and he had asked for a container to take it. And I said, would you like some potatoes and some toast and everything else? He said, no, this is for my dog. So he was, then the waitress went and got a bunch of meat from the back for his dog, so his dog's well fed. But so that was beneficial, and the breakout session that I attended in public safety, the commissioner of corrections from the state spoke, and much of the discussion centered around the need to build regional facilities. And we had this discussion previously when it came to mental health issues. We need to have a facility that can address this issue. Right now, it's sort of overlapped in our prisons, and it's not the way to really address real need in that area. And my comment was that when we look at these things, we tend to look at them as buildings and locations, but really we need to look and understand the need that as it exists, and be sure that we are meeting that need with the staff and the people that can address this. The building is the building, but it's really the service we provide that we need to be sure we provide. And then yesterday, administrator and myself attended an AMC advisory committee on learning opportunities for AMC as they plan work sessions, and it was a good, very good discussion. And the two things I would point out is that with Jessica, who was the administrator in Aiken County and now heads up this, working in this committee, they are doing some very good things to help counties. And one of them is, in the past, AMC has done a salary survey, but they've used an outside resource that sort of just takes generic information, plugs it in, and gives it to you. But AMC now is going to do this study internally, so it'll reflect actuals, and they'll be contacting all 87 counties to do that. The other thing that they're putting together, which is something we've talked about in preliminary budgeting, is the what's mandated when it comes to services that we provide. So they will do a chart that'll show the nature of the mandate, the date that it was passed by the legislature, percentage of funding, and percentage that is up to the county. There's some nuance that exists with the 87 counties, but it is a basic document that we can adapt as it applies to us in evaluating budget and understanding where priorities are. And our priorities, in some cases, are defined by the mandates. In other words, you have to do it. But the interconnectedness to those things that we identify as important is another part of that tool in interpreting it. So I really felt that there are associations and organizations that have an umbrella that appears to offer value, but the AMC is with this effort and many of the things that they provide in way of workshops and classes online and in person really are of value to us as a county.
And for the community, when AMC will be doing a wage study, will they be including benefits that are also offered with the wages?
That was a question that I raised. And when I raised the question, because in the first time that we did a comp study, I asked the individual company that we contracted with, will you do benefits? They said, we don't do benefits. I said, benefits is the number 3 the determiner on where somebody is employed. And maybe you as well as I have had a number of people that have asked if I could just get a job at the county because of those benefits. And so when I raised the question, will it include not just the salary, but will it include basic benefits? And just list all the benefits. That you've got health benefits, but you also have the mandated, paid time off, and you've got a number of different things, contribution to retirement and health savings accounts. And Jessica and I believe the other individual looked at each other and smiled and said, yes, we do intend to do that. We're going to use it through another source that we're going to be able to get it, but we do intend to include it.
And if I can add to that, the other source they're going to do that through is the contracts, the bargaining contracts. So that information will be provided to the HR directors and the county administrators so that we have access to that.
Yeah, and that's thorough, and that's data that is going to really help us. I mean, there's so many times, I'm sure individually, we're thinking, oh my goodness, if I had this, then I'd have context. And for them to do that, that's really stepping up and helping.
Yeah, only updates I would share would be both with the Northwoods Food Project and the Food Access Council, talking about different grant opportunities, and there's some really big ones, and the Food Access Council was looking at one and applying for one, but then it would be kind of in competition with another community organization because there's too similar, too closely aligned, and so the Northwoods Food Project, I think, is going to take a stab at it, and we'll see where it goes. Currently, the Northwoods Food Project is working on a grant program for farmers to give them support however they need it, and trying to figure out what that is and to what extent. So much of it is labor, just weeding or whatever, but there can be equipment efficiencies or supplies or whatever too. So that's probably there's a lot of collaboration. One of the conversations in the Food Access Council too has just been about the very real need of food in our community, and it not being met for everyone, and the resources that it takes to operate a food shelf or food distribution versus a voucher to use at a grocery store. How do you draw that line? And of course, grocery stores have profit built into it, and so that's a factor. But it was just a really interesting conversation, trying to look at the problem as large as they can and try to find a long-term solution. So no determination there, but I'm glad it's being talked about.
Okay. All right, well, yes, at the legislative meeting, I attend the Public Health and Human Services. I'll give more report next week, but the key word is modernization, modernization, modernization. We had a lot of presenters come before us, so we didn't specifically vote on anything for modernization, but the legislators are hearing a earful about that, and we'll continue. I attended the Minnesota Highway 61 first gathering, and incrementally, we'll be meeting about every 3 months. And the project of resurfacing starts at Chateau Laveau. That's where the Tofty Township ends, and it'll go to almost to the border. Almost.
Good, yeah.
Yeah. The little S-curve that we all deal with won't be dealt with until 2030 something. So they have their projects way out there too, just like Riley Haas does. So we had there were 2 meetings. I attended the first one with Visitor Cook County and a variety of people, township people. And then that evening, they had a public meeting. I did not go back for that one. But, so they're now saying, we're in it for the long haul, and we'll start working on that next summer, so that they have good input from everyone. For the second year, Gitchigami Trail has been nominated as the best bike trail in the country. And so that's quite an honor, and we hope that people will, recognize that and vote and be a part of that system. Did you have something you wanted to add, Commissioner Sullivan?
I was just going to say, you can go to USA.com
USA.
and vote on a daily basis.
USA
Today.
paper, newspaper.
The newspaper, correct.
And,
If I could add,
yes,
the Active Living Steering Committee talked about the Gitchigami, and there is so much work, and now it's like maintenance, and there's just a shortage of people. I mean, that actually come to do the work, but it's
Right,
pretty
yeah.
astounding what has been accomplished and continued.
it really is. And especially in the winter, privately, the townships hire people that can clear the trail, but there's sections of it that you just can't do it. And then when the weather gets better, then the organization will hire people from the DNR to come fix the fence and do different things, because the first part of the trail is now getting older. So,
Yeah.
now you're looking into more maintenance, but they're on top of it as best they can be. So tonight is my marathon night with the township annual meetings. They don't start till 8 o'clock, so I start in Schroeder. And they are very nice, though, to say, oh, here's the commissioner. They stop their meeting, I give my report, get in the car, move on to the next one. The reason I'm doing that in that order is that Lutzen is really the only one that has some new supervisors that have put their name on the list. And so by the time they get all that counted, and by the time they talk about drones and all of that, it'll be later. So I'm hoping that I can get there in time for that announcement. So that's my evening. Okay, anything else anybody wants to add?
Well, I just had a question. Have you heard any further correspondence from Ellers regarding options we might have for tax rebates?
Nothing specific,
Okay.
just that they understand that we have that power,
Okay.
not that they know how that would be used.
Well, that's something.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I maybe could hold this for the public health meeting, but relative to our conversation with the Commissioner of Corrections at AMC, talked about recidivism, which is when somebody is incarcerated, what's the likelihood when they are released from that time, that program, whatever they're participating in, that they will be a repeat offender. And so what we try to do in corrections is correct behavior, which means we want to reduce the likelihood somebody will return as an offender. And I think that the average we were finding in jails was 44% likelihood that somebody is released will be a repeat offender. And it was pointed out that there is, if you look at the states, like neighboring states, and you look at what their recidivism is, given our programming, how we compare. And where I'm going with this is NERC, who we talk often about, and the effectiveness of their programming, which is standout, that their recidivism rate, because Phil was sitting next to me from NERC during this meeting, and so I asked him, I said, what is ours? And it's 11%. That's significant. So what we're saying is, because the approach that we take in trying to rehabilitate, trying to come alongside and work with people to help them enter life in a way that's positive, that the likelihood that they will return as a repeat offender is 11%. That's a significant number.
It is, for sure. So we have some upcoming meetings to note. Public Health and Human Service Board is next Tuesday, March 17th. If anybody has a wee bit of Irish in them, that's your day.
There's another word, drone, I think, isn't it, in their music or something?
And our next regular board meeting will be Tuesday, March 24th. In our packet, we have our correspondence memos, our lodging tax comparison through December of '25, and then we have recognition of staff. The anniversaries for March are Connor Ingram from Highway Department, 3 years. Leanne Avery from Public Health and Human Services, 4 years. Amanda Weberg, Soil and Water, 6 years. Kim Shepard, Court Administrator, 29 years. And Courtney Bernier, Auditor's Office, 32 years. And be no other business, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Any discussion on,
Can I touch your
is it the
sweater?
Rams good trail?
CJ Rams.
Just
Oh, there's
so
been lots of discussion.
attractive and so